Hey guys, Stealth here. Time for that Eurocorps Armored replay that I promised you. It's a 10v10, it is on Asgard, this is the deck, or this is the map that the deck was designed for. So let's see how it's going to perform under my management. Now, as it's an armored deck, I'm picking the open field on the right flank here. It's Yankee, X-Ray, Kilo in November, this is what I'm going to be focusing on. I got Xerox over here, or Zero G I should say, let's call him Zero. And the rest of the player force are going to be responding to this section later, as I'm going to be having a very hard time on this flank. Now let's skip the introductions. What I'm starting off with is a Leopard 2A5, 2 Gepard A2s, because there's usually an airborne rush, a couple of 2A4s, Martyr VTS for fire support, and 3 1390s, along with one command vehicle to deploy in Yankee, because if you have multiple people here, it's actually viable to go all the way into November. If you're alone, like me right now, it's not that viable. It's pretty damn difficult to actually make it all the way in. Now I'm splitting up my reconnaissance. I want one 1390 watching this road, because sometimes there will be people who use this road to force their way through the middle. And this is when I spot the first bit of trouble. Akulas. Luckily, they're not over my lines yet. Unluckily, my AA isn't in position yet, my Gepard A2s. Now you can see that 2 of the Akulas fired their missiles at my 1390, but because I retreated it just enough inside cover, it lost line of sight and the missile missed my target, or at least missed my tank. And of course immediately there's the artillery response, because you cannot have a 10v10 without artillery. Now unfortunately that stunned my AA, and you can see that there was a very fast missile coming in. That was the Akula with its anti-radar missile. There goes another one, takes down my second Gepard, and that leaves me defenseless. Got nothing to bring in against these AA or against these helicopters, except for waiting for reinforcements to arrive. Putting down a defense marker here, guys, I need some help, because one 1390 is definitely not going to cut it, and it is already being detected by the Ka-52 and got killed. So now I'm instead not putting a defense marker but a help marker. I really need assistance here, because I got nothing between those helicopters and my CV. Buying that CV cost me the last points I had, so I had to wait a little bit before I could get some more AA up. I got a bit of manpads coming in here, and that's when I spot this. And this was, well, really the latest moment that I should have spotted this. Had these made it through, they had either killed off my CV, or possibly gone all the way into Zulu and killed that. So just because I did not have reconnaissance in this flank, and as you can see, I'm pretty much the only player operating on this entire zone. So at this point I'm in chat, typing to Zero, guys, I need help, now, otherwise this entire flank is going to fall. And as you can see, another wave of Mi-24s comes in, and I'm up against a player here called Wezenit, I think that's how you pronounce it, who's coming in with quite a bit of helicopters. And my tanks are being quite skillfully flanked. At this point my Terror 5 doesn't know where to turn its armor, whether to turn its frontal armor towards the Akula and the 52 or towards the 24D, so it's going to get shot in the side. And at this point I knew that this tank was just doomed. It was never going to get out of there alive, no matter how much AA I was going to bring in. My other AA finally arrived, but of course there is a certain lead time. And this AA arrived way too late, right into the force, or into the offensive of an enemy. I think it was a motorized force, depending, or judging by the type of units. It was either, actually these are Vidras, probably mechanized force. So I'm offloading my infantry, trying to create a distraction with these AMX-10Ps, hoping that my Mistrals can reach this tree line and survive long enough. And that did seem to work. I don't think that they spotted them right away, but of course this is not going to hold for long. So putting down more markers, both me and Zero G. Zero finally seems to realize what's going on here, and he's bringing in quite a lot of infantry here. M2A2 Bradley, so it's going to cost him as well. And unfortunately all of these Vulcans are not capable of actually killing off, or actually they did kill off that long-range seed missile. Since these guys are not radar targeted, he did not lose anyone, and this was a force by Indecisive, who also came out to help on this flank. If he hadn't done that, we would have been finished. Now, I was actually recording the gameplay as I was playing it. I was commenting on it as I went along, but at this point I was like, oh guys, it's going to be one of those games again. Very frustrated with the match. I had lost most of my forces. As you can see, the only survivor here is a wounded 2A4. I do still have control of Yankee, but all of these Vulcans need to move up. They're no use here. And I'm now trying to desperately bring in some more stuff, some more infantry. Indecisive puts down, get infantry in here, and I replied already on the way. Because from over here, from Zulu, I brought in a couple of Martyr 2s with Panzer Grenadier 90s. The reason I picked Martyr 2s is because they needed the frontal armor in this case, and they also needed the autocannon. And the autocannon on these things is just a lot better than the autocannon on the Martyr 1. Now, under the cover of these depths, a lot of infantry is being delivered, mostly Canadian Airborne. And you can see that there's an M1 IP Abram here, or two of them actually, but they are way too close, and these VDVs are probably going to get side shots on them if they're not too busy killing off the Canadian Airborne. There you can see one M1 IP being murdered. And at this point, this was my only priority. I know that this is an interesting zone to hold, but if they break through here, they can threaten Zulu directly, and this zone, with both a land and an air zone, or air reinforcement lane, is much more important than Yankee. On the other hand, if Red 4 manages to capture Yankee, this is not going to be a good situation, because we're going to be seeing reinforcements from their team coming into this side. So what this game is going to develop into is not what you might expect. It is not an armored push across an open field, doing a ton of damage. It's more of a tactical retreat, which might not be the most interesting thing to do as you're playing it, but it sure is interesting to watch, because I was trying to tactically sacrifice terrain, not trying to lose too much of it, and still holding on to Zulu and possibly Yankee. But as you can see, I was dedicating quite some points here, both Martyrs and Panzer Grenadiers, that I did not have enough time to either micromanage or spend points on this sector. So a friendly bomber comes in, or I think it's a friendly, otherwise it just napalmed its own forces here. Panzer Grenadiers were trying to get into these buildings, but I decided to keep them here for now until that napalm burned off. And these mortars are excellent at killing off some of these transports. So these transport, as they cross the field here, are immediately getting picked off by the mortars. And the mortars having medium optics themselves really helped here, otherwise they would not have had a target for anything. Stealth bomber comes in, the Nighthawk by Indecisive kills off a couple of low point transports. Not really a high end target there, but it's nice that he was helping out. You can see some more vehicles coming in, and this is another transport. Or actually it's a Jalo, I think. We killed off a Jalo there. So that was again, I believe, a kill by the Martyrs or by the Leopard C1, which Indecisive brought in here. And I'm not entirely sure what happened to Zero G's forces here. I don't think he pulled them all away, but I think he lost quite a ton of these guys. So Red 4 definitely pushed very hard onto this zone. And I was quite worried that we were going to lose this, and lose Yankee, and then consequently lose Zulu, and possibly the game as well. So I'm bringing in Leopard 2A1 to help out on this flank. I know there's a C1 here already, but the C1 doesn't exactly have the armor that Leopard 2A1 has. This has 8 frontal armor and a 12 armor penetration gun. My tank is quite a lot heavier, with 16 frontal armor and an 18 armor penetration gun. So let's hope that this thing can make it in time. Now this was a bit of a quiet before the storm. There was still some infantry in here, and unfortunately my Panzer Grenadiers picked the wrong route. I should have sent them in through this forest, because it caused me to lose at least 7 guys and possibly 2 more. And another wave of these Super Cobras is coming in. They're doing a good job here, as the enemy did not have a lot of AA yet, but that's about to change. They're going to be bringing in some more AA later. And he lost 2 Super Cobras here, so this really hurt him. And there goes the third one. That was a loss of 300 points in about 20 seconds. If you want to do a push like that, don't come in with Super Cobras. They're too expensive. If you want to do something like that, use the cheaper Cobras like the AH-1F, because they also have rocket pods which can help out against the vehicles that are here. Now I spot some more forces coming in, Scrajets. That is usually not something you want to see, because they carry all sorts of nasty infantry, ranging from VDVs to Spetsnaz. So whatever was going to come out of those transports, if it hadn't come out already, was going to be trouble. Now I managed to pick off one Wilk with my Leopard 2A1, but the Wilks fired twice, so each tank fired one round and damaged this tank quite heavily. But I got my little welcoming committee of 9 guys skirting towards the side, trying to get a shot on these BTRs as they arrive. But Fad, who was operating here, was having none of that. He saw exactly what was the possible threat here, namely a couple of Panzer Grenadiers or other infantry which was hiding here. And instead of going around or following the road, he decided to go around. So this is a very good move here. Some VDV are offloaded by the Scrajet, and the Nighthawk, I'm not sure what it's going for. Let's see, it's going to drop something very precisely out there, where there is exactly nothing, but there was an RM-70 there. Now again, not a lot of armor in this game, and that somehow seems to be how all my armored replays turn out. I use my armor more as a sort of support force. Nice bombing run, by the way, with my Tornado 1DS, or IDS, killed off a nice amount of VDVs, allowing my Panzer Grenadiers to survive. Anyway, my armored gameplay usually turns out into something other than armor. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's just the way that it goes for me. Bringing in some more AA, and exactly at the right time too, because there's a couple of Akulas here, and I managed to pick off one, the other retreats, and that's when something starts to chase my Mistrals, so I'm not going to stick around and see what exactly it is. I'm running as fast as I can with these guys, and I'm being chased by a couple of FJB-40s. Now they're not that dangerous to infantry, but against a couple of Mistrals they are very, very deadly. Now because these FJBs pushed up so quickly, I tried to get my CV out, but you can see that it got hit here and it's burning up. FJBs managed to take it out with one of their RPGs. Now one thing that FJBs are not that good at is dealing with other infantry. So I'm bringing in some more Panzer Grenadier 90s from my mortars, keeping my mortars at range, because these Panzer Grenadiers, the FJB are extremely lethal to vehicles with that RPG 7V. 17 armor penetration is going to kill off that mortars in one shot. I'm also keeping these markers here, bomber incoming. That's my own bombing runs, but unfortunately the FJB jumped again. But since these guys are not terribly efficient at picking off infantry, I'm pushing up heavily with my surviving Panzer Grenadiers, who still have not lost another guy, and getting my Panzer Grenadiers into the building next here. Trying to get here as quickly as possible. Now on the right flank, I was doing some very low point side operations here. I had a couple of mortars standing by, I had some reconnaissance. But you can see there's just nothing going on here. If they had sent helicopters over here, that would have been a bad idea. But if they had done an armored offensive here, that would have been very successful. Because the only thing I had was a Leopard 2A4 to stop that, and my allies. And again, I'm still not sure why Indecisive decided to bring in 5 Vulcans at once. That's not very useful. He couldn't have stopped it either. So, picking off some more units, 15 and 35, so that was probably Spetsnaz or VDV that I got destroyed there. I think it was Spetsnaz. That would be my bet, because I don't think that VDVs are worth 35 points. Now, it would have been nice to resupply these Panzergrens, but I just could not safely get a transport in here. So instead, I decided to bring in more reinforcements. You can see that I'm bringing in mortars and AMX 10Ps with more AA and infantry. I'm trying to get these guys here as fast as possible before the infantry killers arrive. Now, because it's so close to my spawn zone, I can relatively safely bring in airstrikes here, pretty much non-stop. Because with 2 Tornadoes IDS on rotation, I can do a bombing run about every, I think, 60 seconds, provided that those bombers aren't hurt. So, bomber incoming, but unfortunately the scratch-jets are gone by the time that the bombers get there. You can see that I do manage to pick off some things here, I believe. No, this bombing run is not successful. And here we go. 39 Spetsnaz versus 8 Panzergrenadiers. Guess what's gonna happen? Yeah, that was not very good. Heavy bomber comes in from the other side and just tries to bomb out my Panzergrenadiers. Didn't exactly work. I put on a marker, guys, there's Spetsnaz here, so that others don't just blindly send in their infantry, but instead know exactly what they're going to be facing and probably changing their minds. Now there's a tank coming in here. I'm not sure where it came from. I'm not sure how it got here. And the only thing that I just decided to do was send my Leopard 1A5 and the 2A4 after it. And it was a 25-point kill, but I think it was just probing what I had here. Now my reinforcements are offloaded, and this is not looking good. I got 28, 26, 24 guys, and the Spetsnaz are just casually picking them off with those Rice launchers. So bringing in tornadoes, trying to do a bombing run, but unfortunately the Spetsnaz are on this side of the building. These small, I'm not sure what they are, containers or silos, I suppose. So the bombing run doesn't actually hurt them that much. They may have been panicked by it, I'm not too sure, but at least the VDV are completely calm. And I lose another squad of Panzergrenadiers here, or 2 squads even. So let's push up a little. Yankee at this point is pretty much screwed, because I had no way of securing this position anymore. All of my points were dedicated towards saving this area, making sure that I was not going to lose too many units here. And this martyr is holding on, trying to defend itself against a couple of FJBs, but then another group of infantry comes in, and I'm quite worried that that is actually not FJBs, but VDVs, and the VDVs are actually inside this building, picking off my mortar as it gets too close. But a bombing run here manages to kill off a few of them. And I was quite surprised that I wasn't doing that bad with my score, 1600 so far. I brought in 2 Kylers here to support both these tanks, or at least what's left of these tanks, because this Leopard's almost completely destroyed. 1A5 is not in cover, and again I was not micromanaging these things at this point. Now some more infantry transports over here, scratch-jets, and I'm not entirely sure what this is. I think it's a Strela by the looks of it. And there you go. Right flank is now being destroyed. My artillery is going to go down, my Kylers are going to go down, and it was just inevitable. I knew that by the time this started coming in. But of course, I suppose you could say I could have known that long before. So instead, I bring in reinforcements for this zone in the form of a couple of Kylers. Now I picked the Kylers because they have both a main gun and an autocannon. They can very quickly do a large amount of damage towards infantry. So I was hoping to get the Spetsnaz here, or the FJBs, at range, and to do some damage against vehicles and transports, and that's exactly what they're doing. Now doing a bombing run here, unfortunately it only stunned them, it hurt them not at all. I didn't actually get a kill. And these Gepards managed to neutralize enough subsystems on these Vidras that they can actually make it away. And I'm bringing in more Kylers here. Luckily I was operating very close to my fob, and I can actually get these guys repaired without having them be destroyed. In the meanwhile, I was just paying no mind to this at all, and that means that, as you can see, an Su-25T was just casually circling overhead looking for targets. Now the Kylers managed to destroy at least 1 squad of FJB here, but they did get hit in the process. So pulling them back a little bit, because at this range I have a nice shot at this forest without the infantry in the forest being able to shoot back at me. The optics for these units is medium, and that should be enough to spot infantry. Now the Gepards are coming back here. This combat could probably have taken out the transports that were in here. those Vidras. But I'm going to do that with my Kylers in a minute. And you can see there it goes Yankee. And my transport or my reconnaissance, no, what I had here was, no, mortars. 3 mortars are also going down. So, the good news is that I don't have to pay attention to it. The bad news is that it's not going to take Red for long to capture this side and start to bring in units from over here. Kyler's pushing up, doing some damage here. They were taking out those Vidras. And at this point I also realized, okay, if I'm going to face heavy tanks here, I'm going to need something else, because these Kylers are not going to go through, for example, high-end T-72s or T-80s. I also noticed how the enemy was using more and more airplanes in this section. So I'm bringing a triple Roland group. 3 of these Rolands should be enough to destroy enemy aircraft as they come too close. And this is something that I wanted to highlight. It's something I never really considered, but these autocannons prove to be extremely effective against helicopters, especially an unarmed transport helicopter. And this Logi helicopter is something that I really did not want to have land here, or at least not land safely, but instead it crash landed. Cost them 3,700 points of supplies and managed to not reinforce this section, which is something that was very important to me. Because if they were to reinforce all of the infantry here, they could then start coming down this ridge or start dealing damage to my tanks here. So let's see what they actually have. You can see that they have a couple of Granatometz, FGBs, Spetsnaz, Iglas and Strelas. Not really that interesting, but deadly nonetheless. Over here on the side they have already captured Yankee. Of course that was not going to last long, but my allies managed to neutralize it with some cluster artillery. So good job there. Unfortunately a couple of Wilks managed to get here, I think all the way from out there, considering their fuel supply of 2,000. And there were also some Granatometz, which probably is the infantry that came out of those Vidra 2s that I destroyed earlier. I just did not push up far enough to find them. My score is 1962. I was not doing that bad point-wise, although I had lost a ton of forces. And these Kylers are nowhere near heavy enough or strong enough to start dealing damage to Wilks. They did manage to kill off 1 Wilk for 125 points, but that is not the price of one of those tanks, unfortunately. Or actually, I think that it got pretty close, considering they also did some damage up there. No, never mind, it was another group. I had 2 of the tanks here and 2 here. Some more Wilks doing damage to my fob. They're getting punished for that by a Hornet, and unfortunately it didn't really kill them off immediately, but my Leopards, my 2 1A5s over here, managed to shoot those units down. So 2 60-point tanks destroy 225 with assistance from aircraft. And this is when a couple of these tanks start to roll up and get too close. You can see that this thing is just getting blown up. And it is not dead yet, keep that in mind. But with the Flak Panzer Gepards, I managed to stun it long enough for the Panzer Grenadiers to get offloaded from the mortar and then to fire off 2 rockets each, or 1 rocket each. And that killed off that last Wilk. So stun effect by the Gepards lasted just long enough for these guys to get offloaded and do their damage. Scores were very, very close here. 17,000 blue for, 16,000 red for. So at this point I was pretty sure it was going to get a draw. And this is when I actually encounter those Granatometz. And those are not something that you have your infantry exposed to. So instead I'm bringing up my Martyrs, because those are not as affected by the HE damage done by these guys as my Panzer Grenadiers are. Now my Gepards also shot down a command helo here. I'm not sure what it was doing all the way out there, but it's a nice 100-point kill. You can see that I suddenly jumped to 2,800 points. I'm not entirely sure how that happened so quickly, but probably due to that command tank, command helicopter, and a couple of those Wilks. Unfortunately lost a Roland there due to the seed plane, but it paid dearly. It would cost them another 80 points. And of course more artillery is coming in. And you can see that we were still getting very, very close. 19,000 to 18,000. My mortars are getting picked off by the BTR-80s. And the BTR-80s are then going to receive a very warm welcome from my Panzer Grenadiers. Picking them off as they come in. 20 points. Firing again. There you go. 60 or 40 more points scored here. There's another transport, the other BTR-80. Firing again. So these Panzer Grenadiers definitely got their money's worth. And then the game ended in a draw. Because we got the amount of kills that we needed. And the enemy score was just way too close. 18,000 versus 20,000. So with that I scored 3,100 points in kills, got 2,600 losses. And again, it's not the best armored replay. I just cannot seem to get these things right. But I still hope that you enjoyed this tactical retreat of mine, that it taught you how I'm looking at these things and how for sometimes you have to sacrifice some terrain in order to make sure you don't lose the match in the end. So if you liked watching this, please hit the like button down below. If you have a great replay for an armored deck, please send it to me. I already asked a couple of times, but especially for Eurocorps, it's been quite a while since I had a great armored replay. I know I got the replay from the Sir Spamsalot thing, that video a couple of days back, but that was not really a display of an armored deck. So if you have anything good, send it to me through the link in the description. And if you have any comments on this video, I'll look forward to reading them below. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.